Hi, my name is Abby Beers, and today I'll be discussing colossal biology laboratories and how they are going to use CRISPR-Cas9 to de-extinct species. And colossal is mainly focusing on bringing back the woolly mammoth first by creating a hybrid with the Asian elephant. But first things first, Colossal Laboratories is founded by Ben Lamb and world-renowned geneticist George Church. And one of their statements on their website is, "Extinction is a colossal problem facing the world." So on their website, they don't really give a lot of background of why extinction is this massive problem. So according to a study done by Ceballos et al., we are on the brink of a sixth mass extinction. And they state that it's imperative to stop this because it's irreversible and it can degrade ecosystem services that society relies on. And in this study, they determined that there are already 515 species on the brink of extinction, which means they have 1,000 or fewer individuals in that species. And this is so important that there's this many species on the brink, because in the past century, 94% of the populations of 77 mammal and bird species on the brink have become extinct. So they're starting to notice that species that get closer to the brink end up going extinct. So the fact that there's 515 species already on the brink is a huge problem. And a lot of this is due to a human-caused mass extinction, and it's accelerating at such a fast rate, which is why it's such a big concern, because extinction of a species, like before humans were causing all these problems, would take like hundreds or thousands of years for it to slowly dwindle, but now species are here and then they're gone. And reasons why this is so important is because, as stated previously, many species driven to the brink will be extinct soon, and this can cause a collapse of regional biodiversity. And extinction breeds extinction, and one thing they notice is ecological interactions of these species move each other closer to extinction, and there's human pressure that we're putting on the biosphere. And like an example that they use is COVID-19 linked to animal trading. So because people were so focused on like COVID-19 that behind the scenes there's all this illegal animal trading happening. And animal trading basically happens when people trade like rare or exotic animals for like loads and loads of money. But what they don't realize is that when you're trading these rare, like almost extinct, like populations of animals, that they are going to go extinct. So that's another reason why humans are causing extinction. And some other human causes of like a mass extinction include habitat loss and fragmentation, because this creates smaller populations, and these smaller populations have less biodiversity, so they have less genetic variability. And when these populations become so small, their impact on the ecosystem function becomes insignificant. Illegal trade is mentioned, overexploitation, introduced domestic and wild species, toxification, pollution, and climate disruption. And I know pollution and climate disruption are one of the bigger causes of extinction. And species extinction now, they state, is due to massive disappearances to component populations since the 1800s. So once one population starts to disappear, if another species relies on that population for their existence, they're going to start to disappear. And another reason why extinction should be important to humans is because it damages the Earth's ability to maintain ecosystem services. So we as humans need a stable climate, fresh flows of water, agriculture, pests and disease vector control, pollination for crops that are all provided to us through ecosystem services. So I know we've talked a lot about how vertebrates are going extinct, but they're also not the only ones that we are losing. We are losing insects, invertebrates like clams, snails, and plants at a very fast rate, and those also play a vital part on ecosystem services. So that's that, and a little background on colossal biology's statements and values. So, as mentioned, it was founded by George Church and Ben Lamb, and they realized that this extinction is a huge problem. And one of their statements is that colossal laboratories, in quotes, combines the science of genetics with the business of discovery. We endeavor to jumpstart nature's ancestral heartbeat, to see the woolly mammoth thunder upon tundra once again, to advance the economies of biology and healing through genetics, to make humanity more human, and to reawaken the lost wilds of the earth, so we and our planet can breathe easier, end quote. And their goal is to bring back megafauna that once walked the earth, and megafauna are just apex predators that affect the whole food chain. And one of the reasons why they think it's so important to bring back these megafauna first is because they can eat or stomp out invasive vegetation, kick up earth and redistribute nutrients through the soil, making it more fertile, and more like plants and those type of organisms will be able to grow there. And they can pack certain harmful gases back into the turf, they call it, so just back into the earth. And they want to rewild these fauna, so they don't plan on like leaving them caged up and whatnot, but we'll get more into that once we go through the concluding statements and the ethics behind this. Example they use is Yellowstone bringing back the wolf populations in their park, and this caused like elk to run, and elk were not just being fat and lazy and just munching on willow trees that beavers need to build dams, and once the beavers come back and build dams, fish have calm pools to breed and debris cleared from river and preventing runoff, and this causes a healthier ecosystem. So they also state that bringing back megafauna can sequester carbon and methane, and they state that mammoth thundering in the tundra again will be able to stomp down the permafrost, contains thousands of years of decay. Once released, will be catastrophic. And with the mammoth, we can assure that the gases will remain sequestered from our atmosphere, which, kind of makes sense. But to me, I don't really know, like, how that would, like, pummel down the permafrost if it's just gonna melt from climate change. So that's something I bring up in the ethical issues with this. But down to the genetics of this, so colossal biology uses the gene editing system of CRISPR-Cas9, and Colossal on their website provides a very in-depth of how CRISPR-Cas9 works. So they state that CRISPR is found naturally in some bacteria, which, and it's specifically in non-membrane simple cells. But scientists have been able to re-engineer it to work with eukaryotic cells. And CRISPR works with an enzyme called Cas9 to modify genes. And Cas9 is also known as CRISPR-associated protein 9, which is an enzyme used in genetic engineering. And its main function is to cut DNA to excise specific genes and place new DNA in its place to alter the cell's genome and therefore phenotypic expression. So CRISPR-Cas9 complex will use a single guide RNA from CRISPR to guide the Cas9 complex to a specific DNA sequence. And there the Cas9 molecule will then cleave those strands that are complementary to the CRISPR RNA, and this allows an engineered piece of DNA to be inserted into the genome. So essentially it creates two double-stranded breaks in the DNA after the RNA has specifically pointed out that DNA to Cas9. It'll cut it, and then you can then insert whatever DNA you want. And so the more molecular-based steps of CRISPR-Cas9, so the Cas9 protein forms a complex with the guide RNA in the cell, and this complex attaches to a matching genomic DNA sequence adjacent to a spacer. And the Cas9 RNA complex cuts the double strands of the DNA, and a programmed DNA may be inserted at that cut. So, before we get into how Colossal is going to use CRISPR, CRISPR is used in a multitude of ways in society already, and it's very beneficial to society. It was a groundbreaking discovery, and according to the American Society of Mechanical Engineering, so we'll just call it ASME for short, CRISPR has been used to remove malaria from mosquitoes by deleting a segment of mosquito DNA, and these mosquitoes will be able to pass resistance genes to 99% of their offspring even when mated with unaltered mosquitoes, and malaria is a big problem in third world countries. Treating Alzheimer's disease, CRISPR has been used to identify genes related to neurodegenerative diseases. Treating HIV, CRISPR has been used successfully to remove HIV genes from a patient's genome because, it can cut it right out. Developing new drugs, CRISPR-based drugs to treat heart disease, blood disorders, blindness. CRISPR has been also used to expand livestock industries and in growing agricultural crops. And it's been used in China to delete genes that inhibit muscle and hair growth to grow larger livestock, and it's also been used to discover new ways of improving crop disease resistance. As we grow everything in a monoculture here in America, so that's how a lot of crops can die because disease can run rampant. And it's also been used to develop new cancer treatments, and CRISPR has been used to modify immune cells, and it makes them more effective at targeting and destroying cancer cells. So CRISPR has already been very, very beneficial to humans, so now I'm going to dive into how Colossal plans on using CRISPR to bring back megafauna. So, as mentioned, the first megafauna they are going to bring back is the woolly mammoth, and Colossal plans on using the genome of the Asian elephant as a quote-unquote surrogate genome for the woolly mammoth genome, as it's the closest living relative to the woolly mammoth. Which means that it has the most genes in common with the woolly mammoth. And Colossal plans to use the African elephant as the surrogate parent or carrier of the woolly Asian hybrid. And this is just to eliminate any extra pressure on the Asian elephant population because that population is also declining. And they are also larger than Asian elephants, which means they'll have less difficulty delivering the hybrid baby. So Colossal says they want to bring back the woolly mammoth. However, it must be noted that it's going to be a woolly Asian hybrid. So like a woolly mammoth combined with an Asian elephant. They make it seem like they're bringing back the complete woolly mammoth, but they are not. And Colossal plans on using CRISPR-Cas9 to insert over 50 plus genes that exhibit traits of the woolly mammoth into the Asian elephant genome. And this is mainly a lot of cold-resistant characteristics, such as their characteristic shaggy coat, their small ears, cold-adapted forms of hemoglobin, excess adipose tissue production, etc. Those are just the ones Colossal goes into on their website. And so these are the steps in creating the woolly mammoth Asian elephant hybrid. So first, they're going to collect their Asian elephant DNA, sequence this genome, and George Church and a member of his lab visited Russia in 2018 to collect viable woolly mammoth tissue samples, and they looked for mammoth bones and observed what would have been the mammoth step. And they collected samples at the Mammoth Museum in Yakutsk, and they compared the mammoth and Asian elephant genome. So then they're going to sequence this woolly mammoth genome and identify traits to edit within the Asian elephant genome. And the team selected 50 plus traits that will enhance the cold-resistant ability of the Asian elephant. And so first things first, they're going to build CRISPR libraries that will allow for editing identified genes within the Asian elephant genome. And a CRISPR library is made up of synthetic woolly mammoth DNA, and it holds the mammoth DNA that encodes the 50 plus identified traits they plan on modifying. So they're going to then use CRISPR to insert the 50 plus modified cold-resistant genes into the genome of the Asian elephant. And CRISPR-Cas9 containing programmed single guide RNA binds to the identified gene in the Asian elephant genome, and it cuts the double strands. And this allows for the insertion of programmed hybrid DNA in its place, and each new cell replication will express the edited gene of interest, called the hybrid gene, and it will pass it on to future generations. So next, they're going to verify that the cold-resistant traits are expressed in the hybrid cell, and they're going to be tested through various assays, and an assay is an investigative procedure for qualitative assessing or quantitative measuring the presence, amount, or functional activity of a target gene or trait. Then they are going to transfer the embryo, and this involves a scientific process called somatic cell nuclear transfer, or SCNT. And since somatic cells cannot give rise to new life because they aren't gametes, they donate their nucleus to a gamete in this process. So they transport the CRISPR-edited somatic cell nucleus into an egg after removing the egg's nucleus. And after the egg containing the edited nucleus is fertilized, the embryo will carry the trait. And once the scientists are confident the cells are functioning, they will transfer the embryo. And once this embryo forms, it is ready for implantation into the surrogate African elephant. And in an analogous step, the engineered hybrid nuclei will be transferred from a somatic elephant cell to an elephant egg cell, and then to a surrogate in vitro in the uterus. And gestation for this woolly mammoth Asian elephant hybrid will be around 18 to 22 months. So just to wrap things up, potential impacts that CRISPR can have on society, and also potential impacts that Colossal's use of CRISPR can have on society, and some ethical issues. So obviously CRISPR-Cas9 is being used for many beneficial things in society, such as reducing human diseases and helping to increase food production for the ever-growing population, which is a great thing. And I think CRISPR-Cas9 is such a valuable gene editing tool, and it's probably one of the best breakthroughs in biology, I would say, in a very long time. But however, there are some ethical issues surrounding CRISPR, including editing genomes in humans. So according to the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, there's a lot of rising concern about quote-unquote designer babies that have genetic enhancements. So basically the parents can pick if they want their child to have brown hair, brown eyes, blue eyes, etc. And the technology could, however, potentially be used, if in the wrong hands, to create genetic discrimination through eugenics. But that's only if it gets in the wrong hands, and most geneticists agree that this should not be happening. But just some ethical issues surrounding my topic of de-extinction and colossal laboratories are just the general health of the genetically modified animal. They can't really say for certain till after it comes out of the womb if it'll be in pain, if it'll 100% be able to survive in the mammoth steppe, which is mainly in the Arctic, and if they are only creating these hybrids like one at a time, like how long will it take for another one to get there, and how will the hybrid survive being alone? If they don't release it into the wild right away, where will it stay? Will it just end up as a spectacle in a zoo? And are they worried humans will just re-extinct it? What about poaching? Because poaching is something you cannot control. People will do it, they don't care. So all in all, there are so many questions that George Church and Colossal would have to answer before I would be able to remotely support this idea. And yes, it's cool, and it would be great if we could revive extinct megafauna that were once a huge part of the earth and its systems. But how would they be able to sustain themselves in an environment that has changed so much since they once walked this earth? So, all in all, this was my podcast episode on colossal biology laboratories. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned something new.